The rain was merciless, but not as cruel as the man who'd locked the door behind her. Alina stood barefoot in the gutter, her baby pressed to her chest, the city indifferent to both. No money, no family, no one left to call. And then a mansion, golden light spilling through the iron gate like something out of a lie. When the car rolled to a stop, she stepped in front of it like someone who had nothing left to lose. "Please," she said to the man behind the wheel, voice cracking from the cold. "Can I clean your mansion for a meal?" He stared at her for a long time, and then silently opened the door. "Hello family, welcome to True Life Stories. Please subscribe and leave a like for us, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications, so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story." The rain didn't come gently that night. It pelted down in cold, stinging sheets, sharp enough to feel like judgment, loud enough to silence the city's usual rhythm. Car horns dulled into background hums, and even the streetlights looked blurred through the watery veil. The gutters overflowed, bubbling and swirling with dirty water that dragged leaves and wrappers along its choked path. Alina pulled her coat tighter with one hand while the other arm held her baby against her chest. The little girl's cheek was pressed to her collarbone, her skin warm despite the cold. Alina felt the dampness seep into her clothes, her shoes squishing with every step. Her legs ached from walking. Her fingers had gone numb long ago, and she didn't know where she was anymore. It didn't matter. The only thing she knew for sure was that she could not stop. Behind her, the memory of the slammed door still echoed in her ears. Her husband's voice, the final venomous words, played on a loop. "You and that child are no longer my problem." He hadn't yelled. That would have almost been better. No, he had said it calmly, clinically, with a flat stare and no trace of emotion. And then the door had shut, sealing them out of his life like they were trash he'd taken out. Alina had waited outside for 20 minutes, thinking he might change his mind. He didn't. She'd started walking. Now, hours later, her lips were cracked, her breath short. Her daughter, Sophia, whimpered softly in her sleep, tucked tightly in a blanket, her tiny hands curled beneath her chin. And then, out of the blur, Alina saw it, a large wrought iron gate, standing taller than the others she had passed. Light spilled from within, soft and golden, illuminating the rain as it fell in thick streaks. Beyond the gate was a wide driveway lined with trimmed hedges and lamp posts. At the end stood a massive mansion with glowing windows. It looked like something out of a dream, or a movie she might have watched when life was easier. She hesitated. The gate was automatic, a camera perched high on one corner. She looked up at it, not sure what to do. Should she wave? Scream? Keep walking? Before she could decide, headlights approached from behind the gate. A sleek black car, a Rolls-Royce she thought, rolled slowly down the driveway. As it neared, the gate creaked and slid open, splitting down the center like arms preparing to welcome a guest. And there he was. The man behind the wheel had a sharp jawline, dressed in a black wool coat over what looked like a tailored suit. The car stopped just a few feet away from her. She stepped back instinctively, pressing Sophia closer to her chest. Then the driver's door opened, and the man stepped out. His leather shoes splashed into a puddle, but he didn't flinch. His eyes went immediately to the baby. Alina swallowed. Her heart raced. The words burned at her throat, almost too raw to say. But she said them anyway. "Please," she began, her voice hoarse. "Can I clean your mansion for a meal?" The man froze. Rain poured over both of them, but he didn't speak. His face was unreadable, neither cruel nor kind. She looked up at him, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. Her lips trembled as she pulled Sophia's blanket back slightly, showing the tiny, flushed face of her sleeping child. "I don't want money," Alina said quickly, as if afraid he'd walk away. "Just food. For her. I can clean. I'll do anything." Still, he didn't speak. Seconds stretched into something longer, like time was deciding whether to help her or not. Then finally he spoke. His voice was low and smooth, with the kind of confidence that belonged to a man who had nothing to fear. You have no place to go? Alina shook her head. Not in this city. Not anymore. He exhaled softly through his nose. His eyes moved again to the child. Get in, he said simply, gesturing toward the back seat of the car. Alina blinked. Sir, I'm not going to leave you standing in the rain. Get in. She hesitated again, afraid it might be a trick, but the warmth of the car beckoned. Sophia stirred against her chest. Thank you, she whispered, climbing carefully into the back seat, cradling her baby. The leather was warm. Soft. She nearly cried again just from the feeling. The man returned to the driver's seat, shut the door, and pulled forward slowly into the estate. The gate closed behind them, sealing her off from the cold, wet night, and from everything she'd known before it. The mansion loomed like something from a different world. It was larger than any home Alina had ever stepped foot in. Marble pillars at the entrance, tall windows trimmed in black steel, and soft yellow light glowing behind sheer curtains. The driveway curved around a fountain that gurgled steadily, its surface rippling beneath the rain. The Rolls-Royce came to a stop beneath a covered entranceway where not a single drop touched the ground. The man stepped out first. Without saying a word, he opened the back door for her. Alina clutched Sophia close and followed. Her boots squelched against the stone tiles. She tried to walk lightly, to not look as soaked and disheveled as she was. But there was no hiding it. Her coat clung to her body, strands of wet hair stuck to her forehead, and she felt the weight of her appearance pressing down like shame. The man led them up the steps without offering his name. The large black door opened automatically. It wasn't until she stepped over the threshold that she realized he'd used a remote device in his coat pocket. They entered a wide foyer with warm lighting and polished floors. A long hallway extended ahead with soft Persian rugs running across dark hardwood. The warmth hit her skin instantly. She flinched. You can take your coat off, he said, pausing. His voice was gentler now, though still guarded. Alina nodded and struggled with the buttons one-handed. Her fingers shook, the wet fabric clinging stubbornly. She shifted Sophia in her arms and tried again. He noticed. Wait. He stepped forward and held out his hands. Let me. She froze. Then slowly she allowed him to help. His fingers worked quickly, his movements precise and deliberate. He peeled the coat from her shoulders and gently took it away, holding it out like a soiled rag at arm's length. I'll have someone dry this, he said, then turned and vanished through a side doorway. Left alone, Alina adjusted Sophia's blanket. The child stirred, opening her eyes briefly, but settled again into her chest. The baby was warm against her, but Alina's dress beneath the coat was damp and clinging. The man returned moments later with a large white towel. Here, wrap her in this. She took it, surprised by the softness. It was thick, freshly laundered, warm. She carefully moved Sophia into the towel, wrapping it snugly around her tiny body. A sigh escaped the infant's lips, and her hands curled into the fabric. I'll show you to the guest lounge, the man said. Alina followed him through the hall and into a wide room with arched ceilings, shelves full of books, and a fireplace crackling in the corner. The warmth was overwhelming, welcoming but unfamiliar. Her shoes left wet footprints on the floor. He noticed again. Take those off, he said, pointing to her shoes. You can leave them by the door. They'll be cleaned. I didn't mean to dirty anything, she said quickly. You're fine, he said. Then he added, I wouldn't have brought you in if that mattered to me. She hesitated, then slipped off the soaked shoes. Her socks were damp, sticking to the hardwood floor. She stood near the fire, hoping it might dry her faster. He returned again, this time with a folded blanket, a small heater, and something unexpected, a tray of food. 2 bowls of steaming stew, freshly cut bread, and a tall glass of water. He set it down on the coffee table between 2 long couches. Sit. Eat. Alina lowered herself onto the nearest couch, careful not to disturb Sophia. The smell of the stew hit her nose, rich, meaty, and hot. Her stomach clenched so hard it hurt. She looked up at him, uncertain. For both of us? He nodded. She can't eat it, I assume. But you can. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her hands trembled as she picked up the spoon. It took everything in her not to cry as the first mouthful touched her tongue. It was hot, flavorful, like something out of her old life, before things went wrong. "You can take your time," he said, stepping back. "I'll be upstairs for a while. When you're done, there's a room down that hall, first door on the left. There's a bed, clean sheets, and a crib. Use it." Alina blinked. "A crib? I had one delivered about 6 months ago. For my sister's baby. They never visited." His voice was flat. "But it's there." She clutched the spoon tighter. "I don't know what to say." He looked at her carefully. "You've already said it. At the gate." He turned and walked away, leaving only the quiet crackling of the fire and the scent of warm food behind. Alina sat in the glow of the firelight, her baby asleep in her lap, a full bowl of stew steaming in front of her. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt a sliver of something real. Safety. The hallway was silent, except for the muffled hum of rain still tapping the windows. Alina moved slowly, barefoot on the polished hardwood, her footsteps almost soundless under the weight of everything she carried. Not just the baby, but the exhaustion, the uncertainty, the unfamiliar comfort she didn't yet trust. Sophia stirred against her shoulder, still wrapped in the oversized white towel. Her soft breath brushed Alina's collarbone. The fire's warmth had settled into her bones, making her limbs feel heavy. She hadn't realized how cold she had been until she wasn't. She passed a tall mirror hanging beside a decorative table lined with glass vases. She caught a glimpse of herself, a soaked, fragile version of the woman she used to be. Her eyes were hollow, her cheeks pale, her hair wild. But Sophia looked peaceful, untouched by the chaos. The first door on the left. It opened with a soft click. Inside, the room was dimly lit by a bedside lamp and the faint blue glow of a night light near the corner. The walls were painted a pale ivory. A queen-sized bed with fresh white linens sat to the side, and just beyond it, next to the window, stood a wooden crib. Pale wood, no frills, simple, beautiful. Alina stood in the doorway for a moment, breathing in the faint scent of lavender fabric softener. She could hardly believe this space was real. She walked to the crib, her steps slow and deliberate. Sophia squirmed gently as Alina adjusted the towel and laid her down on the soft mattress. The baby's fists unfolded slowly, her face relaxed. She didn't cry. Alina leaned over the edge, brushing a hand lightly over Sophia's cheek. "Sleep, little bird," she whispered. "Just sleep. Mama's here." Her voice cracked on the last word. She stood there for a long time, one hand still on her daughter's belly, feeling it rise and fall with every tiny breath. Then she turned. She peeled off the wet clothes, piece by piece, until she was left in just her undergarments. She found a folded robe at the edge of the bed, soft cotton, too big for her but warm. It smelled clean, like sunlight and detergent. She slipped it on and moved slowly under the covers of the bed. It was the first mattress she had laid on in over a week. The sheets were crisp. The pillow was cool. She sank into it like her body didn't want to leave. But sleep wouldn't come. Not yet. Her mind spun. Who was he? The man who had let her in, fed her, gave her fire and food and towels. He hadn't even told her his name. He hadn't asked hers. He didn't pry. He hadn't tried to take anything in return. That frightened her more than if he had. People didn't do that. Not in real life. Was it a trap? Was there a catch? She stared at the ceiling for a long time. The faint sound of thunder grumbled far off. In the crib, Sophia gave a soft sigh in her sleep. Alina turned onto her side, facing the crib. She reached out, not to touch, just to be close. She watched her daughter's chest rise and fall. Steady. Safe. Her eyes blinked slowly, heavy from warmth and fatigue. She didn't remember falling asleep, but she remembered the feeling that came just before she did. Not peace. Not yet. But the terrifying, tentative feeling of hope trying to come back. The morning came quietly. Alina didn't wake so much as return to awareness. Her eyes blinked open slowly, greeted by faint sunlight slipping through pale curtains. The room was hushed, except for the soft hum of air through the vent above her and the distant trill of birds beyond the walls. She lay still beneath the comforter, not quite sure if she was dreaming. The bed beneath her was real. The warmth. The clean robe around her body. Her daughter in the crib, still breathing softly. Still here. Sophia. Alina sat up suddenly, heart racing. The blanket fell from her shoulders as she swung her legs over the edge of the bed and padded to the crib. There she was, sleeping soundly, one hand stretched out above her head, the towel loosened but still keeping her warm. Her cheeks were pink with sleep, her lips slightly parted, that same tiny birthmark under her right eye. Alina let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. She pressed her hand gently over the baby's chest, just to feel it rise and fall. Only then did she allow herself to exhale fully. The panic passed. She scanned the room, still unsure of her place. There was a small table in the corner with a pitcher of water and a folded towel. A wicker hamper tucked against the wall. Everything had the quiet, intentional neatness of a space prepared, not lived in. Who was this man? Why had he brought her here? Alina hesitated before opening the bedroom door. Her bare feet met the polished floor again. The hallway was empty, warm. The house was silent, but not dead. She could hear faint footsteps, distant and methodical, from somewhere above. She followed them, not out of curiosity, but necessity. The stairs creaked faintly as she ascended. Her hand brushed the railing, unsure if she should be doing this at all. But she couldn't stay in that room pretending this was normal. At the top of the stairs, the hallway curved left into what looked like an office. One door stood ajar. Through it, she could hear soft clacking, keyboard strokes, maybe. Paper rustling. She stopped just outside. He was sitting behind a large oak desk, his back to a wide window that framed the city skyline in the distance. The rain had cleared, leaving streaks on the glass and mist in the hills. His suit jacket was off. He wore a pressed white shirt, sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows. His watch gleamed in the light. He didn't look up at first. Just typed, eyes narrowed. Then he paused. His voice came calmly. "You slept." She flinched. I did." He looked up. Met her eyes. No surprise on his face. Just stillness. Control. Good. You needed it. Alina stood in the doorway, unsure what to do with her hands. She wrung her fingers together. Thank you. For the food. The fire. The bed. He nodded. I told you, you don't need to thank me yet. The words caught her. Yet. A beat of silence. She stepped in a little farther, hesitant. I didn't catch your name. He leaned back slightly in the chair. Mr. Hart. Damon Hart. The name wasn't familiar, but the way he said it carried weight. She cleared her throat. Alina. And my daughter is Sophia. Mr. Hart gave a brief nod of acknowledgement. I won't keep you long, Alina. I have a question. She braced herself. Why did you come to my gate? The words were not cruel, not even unkind, but they were direct, sharp, in that way truth sometimes was. Alina felt her spine stiffen. Not defensively, just to hold herself upright. Because I had nowhere else to go, she answered. Because I was hungry. Because I was afraid I wouldn't wake up tomorrow with my daughter alive in my arms. He didn't react. No surprise. No pity. She went on. My husband told me to leave. Said we were a burden. No family near. Friends scattered across cities. No job. No savings. No plan. Mr. Hart leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. Why here? Why me? Alina swallowed. Because your house had lights on. And because I hoped someone behind that gate might be human. That gave him pause. He didn't speak for a while. The silence between them was full, not awkward. When he did speak, it wasn't what she expected. Do you know who I am, Alina? No, sir. I run a real estate development firm. International. I'm worth more than most people can imagine. But I grew up on less than nothing. She blinked. He didn't say it for drama, just fact. Like he was stating the weather. My mother worked as a domestic cleaner in other people's homes. Slept in a laundry room while I slept on the floor. I watched her clean silver for women who didn't know her name. Alina felt her throat tighten. I built everything so no one could ever ignore me again, he said. Then, standing, he added, and because I can't save my mother anymore. I have a strange urge to help others I find at the gate. Their eyes met again. Not a stare. Not a test. Just human recognition. Come downstairs, he said. There's breakfast. And after that, we'll talk. Talk about what? About your options, Mr. Hart said, already walking past her. And whether you want to clean a mansion or own one someday. The scent of butter and coffee drifted through the air as Alina followed Mr. Hart down the stairs. She hadn't smelled real food cooking in weeks. Not like this. Not food made with intention. The kitchen was enormous but understated. Clean lines, matte black counters, warm wood cabinets. A long island sat in the center, a few stools tucked under it. On the stove, something sizzled in a cast iron pan. Next to it, a tall woman in her late 40s stood turning eggs with practiced ease. She wore a dark apron over jeans and a blouse. Her graying hair was pulled into a neat bun. She looked up as Alina entered. Mr. Hart gestured toward her. This is Mrs. Elsie. She runs the kitchen and most of the household. Alina gave a small nod. Good morning. Mrs. Elsie smiled, though it was small and cautious. She looked Alina up and down, not with judgment but calculation. The way someone assesses a person's emotional state without asking. Go ahead and sit, Elsie said softly. Food's almost done. Mr. Hart moved to the espresso machine without saying much else. His movements were efficient. Every action economical, like a man who had eliminated all wasted energy from his life. Alina sat on the edge of a stool, her bare feet tucked up beneath the robe. Her hair was still damp from the night before, curling slightly at the ends. She caught her reflection in the sleek oven glass. Still looked like a ghost, but a fed ghost. Within minutes, a plate was slid in front of her. Scrambled eggs, golden and soft. 2 slices of toast, buttered at the edges. Sautéed spinach with garlic. No extravagance. Just warmth. Just care. Alina blinked at the plate, unsure what to say. She picked up the fork with both hands. Thank you, she murmured. Mrs. Elsie gave a quiet nod and returned to the stove. Mr. Hart joined her at the island with a coffee mug in one hand. He didn't eat, just leaned against the counter, watching her. Not in a way that made her nervous, but watchful, evaluative. She took a bite of the eggs. Her stomach practically sighed. The warmth moved through her like a spell. You said we'd talk, she said between cautious bites. He nodded. We are. Alina raised an eyebrow, lips twitching despite herself. You don't say much. I say enough, he replied, sipping his coffee. Another few minutes passed in silence. Alina cleaned her plate. Mr. Hart set his cup down and straightened. Here's the situation, Alina. You're here. You have no home, no job, and no immediate support. Is that still accurate? She nodded slowly. Yes. Do you want to stay here temporarily or move on? She blinked. Is moving on even an option right now? He tilted his head slightly. That depends on what you're capable of. And what you want. Alina set her fork down. I don't know what I want. That's honest. Let's start here then. He pulled a small tablet from the drawer beside him and handed it to her. The screen glowed to life, displaying a blank form. I want you to fill out 3 things, he said. Don't think too hard. First, what you're good at. Second, what you've done before. Third, what you'd be doing right now if money weren't a problem. Alina stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered. I haven't had to think about those things in a long time. Mr. Hart nodded. That's why I'm asking you to. She touched the keyboard. Typing slowly, she filled the first line. What I'm good at. Organizing. Cleaning. Managing small chaos. Remembering things people forget. She paused. Then continued. What I've done before. Assistant at a preschool. Caregiver for my aunt. Clerk at a small pharmacy. Volunteer coordinator for a food drive. What I'd be doing if money weren't a problem. Something that helps women who don't have help. Especially mothers. Something that makes them feel safe. When she finished, she looked up. Mr. Hart had already read over her shoulder. He didn't compliment her. He didn't need to. That's enough, he said. It tells me everything I need. She swallowed. And what's that? That I was right about you. Her eyes met his. Right about what? That you're not looking for a handout. You're looking for a foothold. Alina felt something crack open inside her chest. She nodded barely. He turned and opened a drawer. From it, he pulled a slim folder and handed it to her. Inside was a printed document, neatly clipped. A basic contract. Short-term employment. 3 weeks. Live-in assistant. Duties included household organization, logistics support, meal prep coordination. Weekly stipend. Room and board included. No fine print. No hidden clauses. Alina flipped through it. I don't have references, she said. I don't need references. I need results. I don't have anything to wear. I'll have clothing sent by noon. She stopped. Looked down. Her hands trembled slightly on the paper. Mr. Hart watched her carefully. You can say no. Alina looked up at him, then down at the form. I'm not saying no, she whispered. She reached for the pen. And she signed. The pen left the paper with a small scratch. Alina stared at her signature for a long moment, as if expecting it to vanish, or accuse her of making a mistake. But the ink stayed. The paper was still warm beneath her palm. The decision, small and monumental at once, had been made. She had signed. Mr. Hart slid the folder away without a word. His eyes flicked over it once, confirming, then tucked it beneath his arm. Come with me, he said. Alina stood, her robe still tied snugly at her waist. Her hair was still damp. She felt underdressed for her own future. He led her down the hall, past the lounge she had sat in the night before, then through a tall double door she hadn't noticed before. The room inside was large and sunlit, with wide windows that looked out over the back garden. It was half office, half command center. 2 desks faced each other. Shelves lined the back wall, filled with binders and paper trays, each labeled with a sharp, efficient hand. 2 high-backed chairs sat across from a smaller couch and a coffee table stacked with neatly ordered business magazines. This is where the house is actually run, Mr. Hart said. Most people think places like this take care of themselves. They don't. People do. He turned to face her, folding his arms. For the next 3 weeks, you'll help me manage it. Inventory, scheduling, maintenance logs, household accounts. You'll report to Mrs. Elsie and to me. You'll keep records. Check deliveries. Ensure discretion. Alina's heart pounded, but she nodded. Okay. You'll also oversee the scheduling of guests, staff shifts, and security coordination with the front gate. You'll need a phone. A laptop. Both will be provided. She blinked. You want me to run this? Not alone, he said. But yes, I'm offering a test. You signed a short-term contract. This is your proving ground. He paused, then added quietly. You came to my gate with nothing but a child and the willingness to work. That tells me enough. Alina let the words settle. A proving ground. She looked around. The room was organized, sharp, functional, but there were fingerprints missing. It was well managed, not well lived. She recognized the signs of someone who kept everything perfect to keep the rest of the world out. I won't disappoint you, she said. I know. He moved to the wall cabinet and pulled out a sealed box, setting it gently on one of the desks. Your clothes will arrive soon. But until then, you'll begin here. This is yesterday's mail. Catalog it. Scan anything labeled Sterling West into the folder on this desktop. He pointed to a sleek computer on the right-hand desk. Code for the system is 0721, he added. It's my mother's birthday. Don't forget it. I won't, she said. I'll be in my office upstairs for the next hour, he said. If Sophia needs anything, Mrs. Elsie is down the hall. There's a monitor in the room. We've already placed one by her crib. Alina blinked. You already set that up? He nodded once. I plan ahead. Then, without waiting for more questions, he turned and left the room. She stared at the desk. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the box and took out the mail. Most of it was pristine, white envelopes with heavy names, gold seals, embossed logos. She sorted them slowly, fingers gliding over paper that probably cost more than her weekly groceries used to. It wasn't difficult work, just precise. She liked precise. In fact, she realized with a slow surprise, she had missed this. The order, the structure, the sense of value. An hour passed quickly. When the desktop chimed, a new folder appeared with her name. Alina, House OPS. A message blinked beneath it. From DH. Subject: good start. Elsie has your clothes. Join us in the garden in 30 minutes. She stared at it. A mix of pride and nerves bloomed in her chest. She powered down the screen and made her way back to the guest wing. A folded stack of clothes waited just outside the door, simple but stylish. Soft charcoal slacks, a fitted blouse in pale blue, and a pair of flats in her exact size. She frowned. How did he? Then shook her head. Of course he knew. Mr. Hart noticed everything. In the garden, 30 minutes later, sunlight poured over the manicured hedges and trimmed paths. The storm had passed, leaving only glistening leaves and rich, earthy air behind. Mr. Hart stood near a wrought iron table, holding a tablet and speaking to another man in a black windbreaker, probably security. As Alina approached, he turned slightly and dismissed the man with a quiet nod. You clean up well, he said without looking at her directly. I had help, she replied. He gave the faintest hint of a smirk. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. I want to ask you something. She did. Sophia, what do you want for her in 5 years? The question struck her like a wave. Alina hesitated. I want her to be safe. In a home. I want her to go to school without wondering where her lunch is coming from. I want her to know she's loved. That I didn't give up. Mr. Hart looked at her, the full weight of his attention landing squarely on her face. That's what I needed to know. He stood. That's your job here. Everything else is just training. Then he walked away, leaving her in the sun-drenched silence with only the sound of wind in the hedges and the distant murmur of water in the garden fountain. She looked down at her hands. They still trembled slightly, but for the first time in months, they were clean, warm, and full of purpose. Alina stood in the garden long after Mr. Hart had disappeared behind the hedges. The wind had picked up slightly, rustling the branches of a tall magnolia tree near the edge of the courtyard. Somewhere deeper in the garden, birds chirped, returning after the storm. The air smelled of wet stone, trimmed grass, and jasmine. But Alina barely noticed the beauty. She was staring at her own hands. Not shaking this time, but not quite steady either. Something between. As if her body hadn't decided whether it was safe yet. His question lingered in her mind like smoke. What do you want for her in 5 years? No one had ever asked her that. People asked what you needed now. A bed. A ride. A spare $20. But no one asked about the future when you were barely surviving the present. For the first time in a long while, she had given herself permission to imagine 5 years ahead. The afternoon passed quickly. Mrs. Elsie showed her how to operate the household inventory app, how to receive deliveries, and how to file security clearance requests for any new visitors. Everything was digital, efficient, locked with biometric codes. This mansion wasn't just big, it was intelligent. Mr. Hart doesn't like clutter, Elsie said as she handed Alina a slim binder with backup protocols. Neither do I, Alina replied. They shared a brief smile. The first sign of rapport. Sophia remained asleep most of the afternoon in the crib, monitored through the live feed connected to Alina's phone. She checked it obsessively, still half expecting to see something wrong. But her daughter slept deeply, a hand curled near her cheek. By 4 o'clock, Alina had already logged the morning correspondence, reviewed a pending contractor invoice, and double-checked the cleaning rota for the staff. A small thrill settled in her chest every time she hit submit or approve. Not pride exactly, but competence. Like her body remembered this. Like her mind had just been waiting for the signal to return. Later that evening, she was heading down the hallway with a printed delivery confirmation when she heard it. Music. Not from a speaker. Not from a phone. Live. Her steps slowed. It was coming from the west wing, a part of the house she hadn't explored yet. The door was open just an inch. A single, haunting melody drifted into the corridor. Deep. Measured. A piano. She hesitated. She shouldn't. But something about the sound, elegant, raw, human, pulled her in. She moved quietly toward the door and peeked inside. The room was wide and dimly lit, walls lined with books and tall shelves, and in the center stood a black grand piano. Behind it, facing away from her, sat Mr. Hart. He played with surprising gentleness. not with the stiff, mechanical skill of a rich man showing off a hobby, but with grief, with memory. His fingers moved over the keys like they knew the terrain intimately, as if this was a language he hadn't spoken aloud in a long time. Alina didn't breathe. She listened. The melody shifted, lower now, softer. A melancholy line of notes that dropped off at the end like an unfinished sentence. Her chest ached with something she couldn't name. Suddenly, he stopped. His back stiffened. He'd heard her. "I wasn't spying," she said quickly, stepping back. He stood slowly and turned to face her. "I know," he replied. He looked at her for a long moment. "You're light on your feet." "Aye." She held up the folder like a shield. "Delivery confirmation. I was on my way to file it." He nodded once. "You heard the music." Alina didn't deny it. It was beautiful. His gaze didn't soften, but it did lose its edge. "I don't play often," he said. "Only when I forget not to." She frowned slightly. "Why would you want to forget something beautiful?" He walked past the piano, approaching her in the doorway. "Because most beautiful things remind you of what you lost," he said, voice low. Alina looked down. She understood more than he knew. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "Don't be. You didn't cause it." Silence pressed between them. Not uncomfortable, but charged. He glanced at the folder in her hand. "Did you finish the cataloging?" "Yes." "And the payment approvals?" "All sent to accounting," she replied, voice steadier now. He nodded, impressed but unsurprised. "You're faster than I expected." She looked up. "I have a reason to be." Mr. Hart studied her for a second longer. Then, for the first time, he said, "Good work today, Alina." She didn't realize how much those words meant until she felt them settle into her chest like warmth. "Thank you, sir." He turned toward the hallway again, his hand brushing the piano briefly as he passed. "You'll find out soon," he said over his shoulder, "that in this house, work is the easiest part." And then he was gone. Back in her room that night, Alina lay awake beside Sophia's crib. Her daughter was curled in a fresh sleeper, cheeks glowing in the soft light of the night lamp. She looked full, safe, peaceful. Alina reached over and gently took her daughter's tiny fingers in her own. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't thinking about how to survive tomorrow. She was thinking about how to grow into the kind of woman Sophia would be proud to call Mama. And the strangest part? She believed she could.